Hello and welcome to the CourseMaker Podcast. Today I'm delighted for our first episode to have Sole Galli here as our guest. Sole is a LinkedIn Top Voices 2019 in data science and analytics, and she and I have worked on courses together before. Sole has made some significant contributions to open source, which we can get into in our conversation today. And I'm just really excited to be able to have this conversation.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for the invitation. And looking forward to our chat.
Me too. So I guess what we're doing here is just trying to learn a bit more about you and give your students a bit of background and hopefully some inspiration and actions that they can take on their own learning journeys. So to begin with, could you just tell us a bit about your background?
Yes, sure. I studied biology actually in university, and after that I did a lot of years of hardcore scientific research. I did a PhD in Argentina where I studied redox metabolism and its relationship to cell proliferation. Then I moved to Germany where I pursue postdoctoral studies on microscopy, following fluorescent proteins within the cell. Then I moved on to UCL, where I continue research studies, again, molecular biology, cellular trafficking, and stuff. It was very exciting years, but at some point I decided to move on, and I jumped into data science.
Okay, so you had a significant research career before you moved into data science.
Yes, I did. I had the luck of doing research in different countries and some different topics. I got to learn a lot of very exciting people and forge my statistical skills that were actually paramount to jump onto data science.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you decided to make the switch, what made you choose data science?
Yes, well, I guess during my academic research, what I enjoyed the most was microscopy and analyzing images. And what you have to do that is actually a little bit of programming. We used one tool that is called MATLAB because images in essence are matches of colors and points. So I jumped a little bit into programming and I thought that it was a lot of fun. And also the part of analyzing data that I liked the most was actually how to design statistical experiments and so on. So for me, it was mostly like 1 + 1 makes 2. I mean, I like stats, I like programming. Data science seemed like the obvious choice. So that's how I stepped in, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And how did you go about making the transition? What did you study? What did you need to prepare in order to make that career transition?
Yeah, for me, I actually had to learn quite a bit of stuff because even though I knew a lot of stats, it's not necessarily what you use directly in data science and machine learning. And also, even though I programmed a little bit in MATLAB, my programming skills were very, very low. And also MATLAB is not a language that is very famous in the data science community. So I had to learn pretty much everything. I had to learn first to program in R. That was my first language of choice. Then I learned how to program in Python. I had to learn a little bit of SQL. Python and SQL I learned mostly on the job. But R I learned before I left academia and got actually my first job. And I also had to learn a lot about machine learning and machine learning algorithms. So yeah, I was going to work during the days and then I studied a lot in the evenings to kind of get up to speed with what I needed. And to learn, I have to say, I used these wonderful resources that we can find online nowadays in these massive online platforms that are great and that make knowledge available to pretty much everybody, in some cases for free, in some cases for a very slow fee. So knowledge is out there for those who actually want to get it. So I think it's wonderful. That's how I studied at the beginning. And then one never loses its old habits. So I jumped onto scientific papers, those that basically discover or kind of design, if you want, decision trees, random forests, and some other ones. And then some books. And yeah, here I am.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like quite a bit of work making your transition. How long would you say you were doing your evening study for?
From the moment I decided that I wanted to change until I actually got my first job, I think it was only 6 months of evening help. So it's not that much, to be honest. But then I, of course, continued studying later on as I was doing my work. I mean, yeah. So it's a lot of things I learned on the job, a lot of experience that I got from there, and then also a lot of reading. And sometimes I attended meetups and talked to colleagues. So the learning didn't stop when I got the job, but I think it kind of grew exponentially from that moment onwards.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, and then let's talk a bit about your courses. So you have courses on feature engineering and feature selection, as well as courses that we've worked on together around machine learning model deployments and machine learning testing. What made you decide to do a course on feature engineering?
Yes, actually, what the main reason was that there is actually no course on feature engineering, or at least at the time there wasn't any. And I found it very, very hard to find out how you can preprocess your data in order to use it as an input for machine learning models. What I noticed, because I was taking so many courses, is that they are very, very good to help people give those first steps and land your first job if you want. But once you're there, there is like a little bit of a gap with what comes next. I mean, once you're there, you don't really know what best practices are, how things are done within an organization, how things in an organization differ from data science competitions. The knowledge, if you want, can be out there, like in blogs, in some scientific articles, some organization publishes a white paper, but it's very, very hard and very time consuming to find it. And because I did that in order to engineer my variables for the first model that I made, I thought that it would be a great idea to put it all together into one course and make it accessible for everybody, or at least everybody who wants to learn more about how to transform their variables. So that was what got me started with feature engineering. And the same was true for feature selection.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you were first figuring out feature engineering, you were looking, you said, in blogs, some scientific papers. How long did it take you to sort of get your head around it and figure out what you needed to for feature engineering?
I had quite a bit of knowledge from doing it as I was working. I mean, I did all the reading, and I kind of knew what was going on by the end of it. So then I decided I would put it together in a course, and then to make the first course and kind of shape it up a little bit, I would say it was another 4 months. It was my first course, and I think, it was good content. It was not the best of deliveries. Potentially, I didn't have a lot of experience on how to put up an engaging course together, but fortunately, students gave me a lot of feedback. And then last year, actually, I made the second version of the course that I think is much better. And things evolve too quickly in technology. So it's not that you make one course and it stays there forever. At least I like to update it and keep abreast of what's going on in the world. So I included the new libraries that are coming up. And as I was developing the course, I kind of noticed that it is a little bit hard to engineer your variables in a way that you can actually have it almost ready to deploy a model in production. I felt that there is a little bit of a technological gap there. That's why, as a tool to accompany the course, I created this open source package feature engine, which kind of addresses this problem. It allows the user to transform the variables in a way that they can either continue doing data analysis, because this package returns pandas data frame, and therefore you can continue exploring your data as you want. But if you want, you can also use it within a pipeline that is ready to deploy. So yeah, that's how this package was born. And I continue basically learning more and more about feature engineering, and whatever I find interesting and exciting, I just add it to the course.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely second that Feature Engine is a great package. And for sure, we'll link to that in the show notes for anybody listening who's not encountered it before.
Cool.
It's interesting news actually about Feature Engine that it's now going to be included in the SciPy stack. Is that right?
It is going to be included in Scikit-learn's related projects page. So
Great.
Feature Engine now features among other projects that are kind of related to scikit-learn in some way, particularly in functionality. And now it's also part of the Anaconda distribution, so you can install it with Conda as well. And the last couple of weeks, there was a lot of contributors that are actually helping me enhance Feature Engine functionality. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm probably going to send some sharing online about how much I appreciate the work of these people.
That's really great news. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Okay, well, if we go back to your courses, how would you say that your teaching approach differs from similar or just other data science courses?
Yes, that's an interesting question. I don't know if my teaching approach differs. I think it's mostly about the content. Like I said, I try to make courses that are filling gaps of knowledge. So my courses, and I think our courses, because deployments and testings are also not for beginners, try to basically bridge that gap. So we've gathered a lot of experience on the job on how things are done in different organizations through our experience, through talking to colleagues. And I try to put all that into the courses so that the students or the users get a good feeling of how things are done within an organization that is looking to use those models live, ideally, and what problems we have encountered and how we can go around them. So it's a lot of practical insight in them, plus the fact that the courses and the content is not necessarily for beginners, but is actually looking to help people that have already given the first steps. And then what I think is kind of unique at the moment as well is the fact that we have created open source to kind of support the course. And well, now it's taken off, so now it goes beyond the course. But yeah, I think those are kind of the most interesting bits about our courses.
For sure. And what do you think is, or one or some of the key things that students need to know to improve their understanding and capabilities with feature engineering?
To me, what is critical is to try and understand what the transformations are doing to the variables, why we do those transformations, and how they are connected or how they will affect the performance of some models, for example. I think this is clearly my opinion, but it's not only important to know that, for example, imputation with the mean exists, but what is that effect on the variable, and how is that going to affect the performance of the model? And I'm kind of wondering and thinking, like, should I use this technique or that technique if this is the model that I'm going to build? So yeah, I would say critical thinking and knowledge-derived decisions on how to preprocess our data are going to take us a long way.
Yep. And on the flip side of that, what are some of the most common mistakes that people are making when it comes to feature engineering?
I think it's, yeah, as you say, is the flip side. I don't know if these are mistakes. I don't like talking about mistakes and doing things well or wrong. I think that if we don't think why we're doing what we're doing, we end up producing models and transformations that will not return the best performance, and then we can leave some benefit on the table. Or contrarily, because we need to improve the performance, we are going to spend a little bit more time kind of trialing and error, which we could have avoided if we gave some critical thought on how we want to preprocess things and how we want to move forward.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, I'm going to ask you a little bit about more general career stuff for any students who are thinking about how they can grow their careers in data science. So for people who want to get into data science, what are some of the mistakes that people make who want to get into the field, and what are some what's some advice you'd give to people who are maybe just starting out and want to get into data science?
Yes, it's an interesting question. Data science is very, very trendy these days, and there's a lot of demand certainly for kind of people who want to do data analysis and machine learning. I think a good starting point would be to think whether I am going to enjoy doing that, like getting familiar with what data science is, what are going to be my daily tasks, and do I really want that? Do I really like it? And if the answer is yes, then maybe this is the first step to move forward. But if we're not going to like that, then potentially that's not the job for us. And yeah, like my advice would be to know programming kind of well in R or in Python, a little bit of SQL, a little bit of Git, a lot of machine learning and algorithms and stats. We don't have to learn all at once. This is an ongoing process. But whenever we learn something, I would recommend highly to know it well, because the more we know something, the more resourceful we are when the problems come. So we can know very high level what a random forest does, and we can use it, because with scikit-learn today is import random forest classifier, boom, you have an algorithm. But if we don't really know what a random forest is, what it does to the features, how it selects and how it makes the decisions, then it's very hard for us to understand which feature is important, how many features I have to use, what happens if I use a lot of features or too few features. So yeah, I think it's about knowing it well so that we are more resourceful to resolve the problems that may come, and I think they will come, the problems. And that's why I said at the beginning, make sure that you really like it, because it will help you a lot, I think.
Yeah, definitely good advice. And then I guess what we're talking about there are people earlier in their career. What about data scientists who maybe have been doing the work for a little bit longer? They're somewhat along in their career and looking at somebody like yourself and thinking, how do I replicate some of your success? What advice would you have to those?
Yes, after you kind of started, then there are a lot of possible directions that we can follow. Like data science is about analyzing data and producing machine learning models, but then we need to deploy the models. So a little bit of software engineering skills are very useful, I would say, and very handy. And I personally find it quite exciting. So that aspect I like a lot, even though, like, for example, here I want to be an expert like you are, Chris. But there is also another possible route, like data engineering, which is basically how we get our data to the data scientist stack, if you want, so that they can actually preprocess. So I think the time comes when we kind of have to make a decision what we like the most, and then we kind of specialize in that bit, like be it software engineering skills, be it data engineering skills, be it model monitoring skills. Maybe we want to become the technical leader, so then we need to learn a lot of people skills and managing skills. I think, yeah, there's several paths that we can follow. And yeah, it's always continue learning and learning. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that you say about the people skills and managing. I wonder, what do you think makes a successful data science team? Because sometimes data science, for me, looking at data scientists I've worked with, it can seem like a little bit of a lone wolf sort of activity. But what are your thoughts about what makes for a successful data science team?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm not too sure there is one single answer, but I think it's important that the team is actually a team with several people and not just one. I think critical thinking mass is important, and if we have different people in the team with different expertises, that enriches the team a lot, because one may know a lot about supervised learning, the other one may know a lot about Bayes, and then that basically makes the team very rich in terms of knowledge. Then it's also extremely helpful, if not unavoidable, that we have one person that, or more ideally, that are able to traduce the technical knowledge to the lay audience, because ultimately the data scientists are not the ones that are going to use the model. Other people are going to use the model. Right. So it is critical that we understand how other people are going to use our models, what they want it for, what they want to achieve, and then we work together to basically produce the best solution. And for that, it's important that we understand their job, like what they need, and also that they understand how we can help them. So I think that's also very important. And then communication with the software developers as well, because they also have their requirements. And we can produce, hopefully, something that is already very close to their requirements. So then we can also reduce the lag from research to production. So I think, yeah, it's a little bit of everything, like variety in people and skills. I think it's one of the most important things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I mean, this has been super interesting, Sole, but
thank you.
I guess just to close things off, what's next for you? What are you working on now?
I think I'm developing new courses at the moment. I'm working with 2 colleagues that I managed to get excited about creating new courses. So yes, that's what we're doing. There is 2 more courses in the pipeline. One is probably to come up before the end of this year. The other one is probably first quarter of the next one. And then I'm also constantly updating feature engine and updating. Now it's time to update feature selection. And I'm also planning to write a book on feature selection. So hopefully it's also going to come up before the end of this year.
You're always busy. Yeah. That's really exciting stuff. It sounds like lots of interesting things coming along soon. Where can listeners go to find out more about you and your work?
We have a website. It's www.trainingdata.com. There is the best way to find out about our courses, our books, a little bit about ourselves, and for sure all the links to all our relevant resources. Our repo hosts Feature Engine on GitHub, and we can also be found on LinkedIn.
Great stuff. Well, I'll make sure that all those links and everything will be in the show notes. So with that then, Sole, thank you ever so much for sharing your story.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm sure that our listeners will really enjoy to hear some of those details about the journey you've been along. Cool. I certainly did. So
Thanks.
Thanks very much then, and bye for now.
Cool. Bye-bye.